Plans to toughen safety requirements for the big tech platforms are on ice, potentially until after the election. A review has recommended hefty fines for companies that breach a duty of care around content including child exploitation and substance abuse. National technology reporter Angela Voipierre joins us now for more on this. Hi, Ange. So what's being proposed here? How much tougher could the rules get?
Significantly tougher. This is a really big day. This is kind of the product of years of process trying to work out how to essentially, make the rules more difficult, make the regulations tougher for big tech companies, all the social media platforms that are so well known to us. And they're looking at a pretty big stick here. Massive fines, up to 5% of global revenue, which could stretch into the billions, as you can imagine, for a company such as Meta, for example, or 50 million. That's the alternative, whichever is larger, but you can imagine that it would be the first figure. That's what a court could do. 10 million is the civil penalty that's being threatened here. And looking to kind of capture the biggest platforms in a tiered approach. So any platform or service that reaches more than 10% of Australia will be automatically included in these new, tougher rules. It's all being underpinned by a duty of care, as you mentioned. So this is really shifting. This is something the government has committed to because they haven't responded to the proposal that Delia Rickard has made, a senior public servant who's reviewed the law. That's all going to be tabled before Parliament today. We don't have the government's response, but the one thing they have committed to, unambiguously, and this was back in November, is a duty of care which would make it so that the platforms themselves have to take responsibility for preventing harms from happening in the first place, rather than just responding to them in, whack-a-mole style, which is the system we have now. So if these proposals are taken on by the government or whoever is in government after the election, it would be a really significant change for Australia.
Yeah, I mean, these fines are really hefty. This would be pretty groundbreaking stuff if it was to be adopted, right?
Well, groundbreaking in one sense, but not in another, in that we are really, and I don't think there's any shame in this, by the way, but cribbing the model from the EU and the UK, who have gone out on this first, and they've proposed similar fines, a similar size, I think maybe even a little higher, 6%. So we're kind of matching what is happening in other jurisdictions, not in every jurisdiction, of course. In the US, we see significantly less, and we see Donald Trump signalling that he's going to have a lighter regulatory touch, to put it mildly, when it comes to big tech companies. And, we've seen a pretty cosy relationship, and it was very evident on Inauguration Day, but you can see it elsewhere too, very cosy relationship with some of these tech CEOs.
And we're hearing also that these changes may have to wait now until the other side of the federal election. What are we to make of the timing of that?
Well, there's a couple of factors here, right? I mean, we're expecting an election, and we don't know when, but there may be as little as a couple of sitting weeks left before the Parliament is dissolved, which is just not enough time to get reforms of this magnitude through. I mean, this is just the report, then it's got to be drafted, and then, all the processes that we're familiar with in terms of how laws get made. But the other factor here is, of course, Donald Trump's readiness to impose tariffs. And we've been seeing that play out. I mean, we've been talking about it all day when it comes to even close allies such as Canada and Mexico. There's no reason to believe that Australia would be exempt. And Donald Trump has also signalled that, and in fact, I think directly threatened in the case of at least the UK and the EU, that tariffs could be on the table for tech regulation, in response to tech regulation. So it's definitely going to factor in the decision making of any future government when it comes time to decide how hard to go when on this proposal that we're going to see more of today, and it'll be a very difficult decision for them, I imagine.